Fear is not your enemy. Your reaction to fear is. The ancient samurai understood this with a clarity that modern men have forgotten. They called their answer Fudoshin, the immovable mind. Not the absence of fear, but the refusal to be moved by it. This is not philosophy for contemplation. This is battlefield technology, forged in an era when hesitation meant death and clarity meant survival. In the year 1600, on the blood-soaked fields of Sekigahara, over 160,000 warriors faced each other in what would decide Japan's future. The men who survived were not the fearless. They were the immovable. They felt the same cold grip in their chests, the same animal urge to flee. But they had trained something deeper than courage. They had trained Fudoshin. While lesser men drowned in their panic, these warriors stood in the center of chaos with minds like still water. The battlefield moved around them. They did not move within themselves. You face your own Sekigahara every day, not with swords, but with decisions. The presentation that tightens your throat, the conversation that makes you want to disappear, the risk that whispers you are not ready. These are your enemies at the gate, and you have been taught to fight them with motivation, with positive thinking, with the fragile armor of confidence. This is why you lose. Motivation is weather. It comes and goes. Confidence is a sword made of glass. It shatters under real pressure. Fudoshin is the stone beneath your feet. It does not care about your feelings. It does not wait for readiness. It simply does not move. The samurai developed this principle because their lives demanded it. In the Sengoku period, from 1467 to 1568, Japan tore itself apart in constant warfare. A samurai could not afford psychological luxury. He could not wait to feel brave. He trained his mind the way he trained his sword, through deliberate, repeated practice until response became reflex. The warrior Takuan Soho, a Zen monk who advised swordsmen in the early 1600s, taught that the immovable mind is not rigid. It is like water that reflects everything but clings to nothing. Fear arises. The immovable mind sees it, acknowledges it, and continues forward without attachment. This is the distinction modern psychology has rediscovered and labeled exposure therapy, cognitive diffusion, acceptance, and commitment. The samurai had no such terms. They simply knew that a warrior who fights his fear divides his force. A warrior who befriends his fear and walks forward anyway becomes unstoppable. Fudoshin is not about eliminating the biological response. Your body will still flood with adrenaline. Your amygdala will still fire its ancient alarm. Fudoshin is the trained capacity to feel all of this and proceed with precision anyway. It is the difference between a green recruit who panics at the sound of arrows and a veteran who hears the same sound and calmly adjusts his position. You have been lied to about fear. You have been told it is something to overcome, to defeat, to rise above. This creates an inner war you cannot win. The samurai teaching is simpler and infinitely more powerful. Fear is information. Treat it as such. When fear arises, the immovable mind asks one question. Is this danger real or is this discomfort? Real danger requires action. Discomfort requires movement through. Most of what paralyzes you is the second type. You are not in danger. You are uncomfortable. The immovable mind knows the difference and acts accordingly. This distinction alone will change your life. The path forward is not through becoming someone who does not feel fear. It is through becoming someone who feels fear and is not moved by it. This is Fudoshin. This is what the ancient warriors knew. This is what you will learn to forge within yourself. Miyamoto Musashi wrote the Book of Five Rings in 1645 while living in a cave alone at the end of his life. He had killed his first man at age 13. By the time he penned his final teachings, he had fought over 60 duels and never lost. Not once. This was not luck. This was not talent. This was Fudoshin cultivated through 2 decades of walking directly into situations that would have destroyed lesser men. Musashi's life is the blueprint. His immovability was not a gift. It was a practice forged through systematic exposure to exactly what he feared most. When Musashi was 21, he traveled to Kyoto to challenge the Yoshioka school, the most prestigious sword academy in Japan. This was not confidence. This was strategic madness. The Yoshioka family had trained samurai for generations. Musashi was a ronin, a wandering warrior with no master, no lineage, no reputation. He challenged the head of the school, Yoshioka Seijuro, and defeated him. Then he defeated Seijuro's brother, Denshichiro. Then, in 1604, the entire Yoshioka clan ambushed him with dozens of armed men. Musashi killed the child heir they had sent to fight him and cut his way through the ambush. The school never recovered. The Yoshioka name disappeared from history. This is what immovability produces. Not the absence of fear, but the capacity to function at full effectiveness while fear screams in your skull. Musashi taught that the immovable mind is cultivated through what he called the spirit of the void. This is not mysticism. This is tactical emptiness. When your mind is empty of attachment to outcome, empty of self-concern, empty of the need to be safe, you become infinitely flexible. You can respond to what is actually happening instead of responding to your fear of what might happen. Most men lose before the fight begins because they are battling phantoms. The immovable warrior sees only what is in front of him. In the fire scroll of his 5 rings, Musashi writes that you must make your combat stance your everyday stance, and your everyday stance your combat stance. This is the core practice. You do not wait for crisis to become immovable. You train immovability in the small moments until it becomes your default response. When the waiter brings the wrong order, when the email carries criticism, when the meeting goes sideways, these are your training grounds. The immovable mind does not react. It observes. It considers. It responds with precision. This is not suppression. Suppression is holding the dam against the flood. Fudoshin is becoming the riverbed. The water flows through. You remain. Musashi also taught the principle of Kenzen Ichinyo. The sword and Zen are one. This was practiced at the Yagyu Shinkage-ryu school, where swordsmen trained meditation as intensely as they trained combat. The practice was simple, but not easy. Sit in zazen, full awareness, while maintaining the mental state of a warrior about to engage. Feel the readiness without tension. Feel the alertness without anxiety. This is the razor's edge where Fudoshin lives. The Yagyu masters knew that a warrior who could maintain this state while sitting could access it instantly when steel sang toward his throat. The modern application is identical. Train the immovable mind in stillness so it is available in chaos. Here is Musashi's method translated for your battlefield. Choose the thing that makes your chest tighten. Not the thing that will kill you, the thing that makes you want to hide. The difficult conversation, the public speaking moment, the financial risk, the creative exposure. Then engineer small, repeated contact with that discomfort. Not to conquer it, to become familiar with it, to sit with it the way Musashi sat with the possibility of death before every duel. He did not eliminate fear. He made fear boring through repetition. When you have felt the sensation 1,000 times and continued forward anyway, it loses its power to move you. This is not desensitization. This is sovereignty. The immovable mind that Musashi embodied came from a simple recognition. The fight you avoid grows stronger in your mind. The fight you enter repeatedly becomes just another movement. By the time Musashi faced the Yoshioka ambush, he had already walked into dozens of situations that terrified him. The fear was still there, but it no longer controlled his hands. His technique remained precise. His timing remained perfect. His mind remained still. This is the promise of Fudoshin. Not that you will stop feeling, but that your feelings will stop being your master. The samurai did not theorize about immovability. They drilled it into their bodies until it became cellular. 3 practices formed the foundation, each simple enough to start today, each powerful enough to rewire your nervous system. These are not exercises, these are forging techniques. What emerges from consistent practice is not a better version of who you are now. It is something fundamentally different, a man who cannot be moved. The first pillar is breath control through what the samurai called kokyu-ho. In the dojos of 17th century Japan, warriors trained a specific breathing pattern before engaging in kumite, live sparring with wooden swords. 4 counts in through the nose, filling the lower belly first. Hold for 4 counts. 8 counts out through the mouth, emptying completely. This was not relaxation breathing. This was combat breathing. The extended exhale activates the vagus nerve, which directly counteracts the sympathetic nervous system's panic response. The samurai knew nothing of neurology. They only knew it worked. When your body screams run, this breath pattern tells your biology you are safe enough to think. Practice this pattern for 5 minutes every morning. Not when you are stressed, when you are calm. You are building the pathway so it is available when arrows fly. Then take it into micro-stress. The cold shower you have been avoiding, stand under it and maintain the breath pattern for 1 minute. Your body will revolt. Your mind will offer every reason to step away. The breath continues, 4 in, 4 hold, 8 out. What you are training is the gap between stimulus and response. The cold water is the trigger. The panic is the default reaction. The controlled breath is Fudoshin inserting itself into that gap. You are not enduring the cold. You are becoming someone who feels the cold and continues breathing with precision. This capacity transfers. The job interview that spikes your heart rate, the confrontation that tightens your throat, the pattern is already installed. Your body knows what to do because you have taught it in 100 small moments. The second pillar is present moment anchoring, what Zen practitioners called shikan, just this. The wandering swordsman Yamaoka Teshu, who lived in the 1800s and engaged in Zen training alongside his sword practice, taught his students to fight each opponent as if that opponent were the only thing that existed in the universe. Not the previous strike, not the next movement, just this sword, just this moment, just this breath. When fear pulls you into the future, into what might happen, what could go wrong, how badly you might fail, you have already lost. The future does not exist. It is a story your mind tells to protect you from present action. The immovable mind lives in what is happening now. Train this through sensory grounding during daily activities. When you eat, taste the food. Not while scrolling, not while planning, not while reviewing the day. Just taste. When you walk, feel your feet contact the ground. Each step is a return to now. This sounds trivial until you realize that most men spend their entire lives 3 steps ahead of themselves, which means they are never actually present for the moment that requires action. When that critical instant arrives, the moment to speak up, to take the risk, to stand your ground, they are lost in mental simulation instead of responding to what is real. The samurai who could anchor himself in this moment had an advantage that looked supernatural. He was not faster. He was simply here while his opponent was mentally elsewhere. The third pillar is voluntary hardship, what the samurai called shugyo, austere training. This is where modern men fail most completely. You have optimized your life for comfort, then you wonder why you collapse under pressure. The warrior path demands the opposite. You must regularly choose difficulty when ease is available, not for punishment, for calibration. Takeda Shingen, the Tiger of Kai who ruled during the Sengoku period in the 1500s, required his samurai to engage in winter training, practicing sword forms in freezing mountain streams before dawn. This was not hazing. This was teaching the body that discomfort is not an emergency. When you regularly expose yourself to manageable suffering, your nervous system recalibrates its threat assessment. What used to feel unbearable becomes just another sensation. Begin with fasting. Skip breakfast twice a week. Your body will panic. It is wired to interpret hunger as danger. Sit with that panic. Observe it. Continue your day with full effectiveness. You are not starving. You are teaching yourself that discomfort and danger are not the same thing. Then, progress. The workout that sounds too hard. Do it. The early wake-up that feels impossible. Set the alarm. The social situation that makes you want to hide. Attend it. Each time you choose the harder path when the easier one is available, you are hammering Fudoshin into your character. Not because hard is virtuous, but because a man who can only function when comfortable is a slave to his circumstances. The immovable mind moves through life untethered to the need for ease. Your body does not distinguish between a sword at your throat and a critical email. This is the problem. The amygdala, that ancient almond-shaped cluster deep in your brain, evolved when every threat was a predator. It has not updated its software. When your boss requests a meeting, when you see your bank balance dropping, when you must speak in front of others, your body initiates the same cascade it would if a tiger emerged from the brush. Cortisol floods your bloodstream. Your prefrontal cortex goes offline. Your hands shake. Your thoughts scatter. This is not weakness. This is biology doing exactly what it was designed to do 300,000 years ago. The samurai recognized this without understanding the mechanism. They called it the monkey mind, the chattering, panicking aspect of consciousness that sees danger everywhere. In the Hagakure, written by Yamamoto Tsunetomo in the early 1700s, he describes how a warrior must train to distinguish between the fear that protects and the fear that paralyzes. A samurai facing a genuine threat, an opponent drawing steel, experiences clarity. His training takes over. His body knows what to do. But the same samurai lying awake at night imagining future battles, future failures, future dishonor, this fear serves no purpose. It only weakens him before the fight begins. The immovable mind masters this distinction. Real danger happens now. It requires immediate physical response. You are under actual attack. The building is actually on fire. The threat is present and concrete. In these moments, fear is your ally. It sharpens your senses, floods your muscles with energy, focuses your attention to a laser point. This is the fear the samurai respected and utilized. But phantom fear, the fear of what might happen, what could happen, what you imagine happening, this is the enemy. This is the fear that keeps you frozen when no actual threat exists. The public speaking scenario plays out in your mind 50 times before you reach the stage, and in each mental rehearsal you fail. By the time the real moment arrives, you have trained yourself to panic. You have mistaken simulation for reality. The practice is simple but requires honesty. When fear arises, stop. Ask the immovable question, am I in danger right now in this present moment? Not in 10 minutes, not if things go badly. Right now. If the answer is yes, move. Act with complete commitment. This is survival, and your biology is serving you correctly. But if the answer is no, if you are safe in this present moment and your fear is about a future that does not yet exist, then you label it clearly. This is phantom fear. You are not ignoring it. You are categorizing it accurately. And then you proceed anyway. Not because the feeling disappears, but because you have recognized it as false intel. Takuan Soho, the Zen master who advised the swordsman Yagyu Munenori in the 1620s, taught that the mind must be like a gourd floating on water. Tap it, and it moves away, but it immediately returns to stillness. It does not cling to the disturbance. When the sword cuts toward you, the mind perceives the sword. When the sword passes, the mind releases the sword completely and perceives what comes next. If the mind holds on to the first cut, It cannot respond to the second. This is the cost of dwelling in phantom fear. You are fighting battles that already ended or have not yet begun, which means you are absent for the only battle that matters, the one happening now. Modern research confirms what the samurai knew. The work of Joseph Ledoux on fear conditioning demonstrates that the amygdala can learn new responses. It is not fixed. When you repeatedly expose yourself to a trigger without the catastrophic outcome your brain predicts, the neural pathway weakens. The samurai called this becoming intimate with death. They did not mean literal death in every instance. They meant becoming so familiar with the sensation of fear that it no longer commanded them. A samurai meditated on his own death every morning. Not morbidly, but practically. He visualized dying in battle, dying from illness, dying suddenly without warning. By the time he faced actual danger, the concept had lost its power to paralyze him. He had already died 1,000 times in his mind. One more death was simply familiar. You must do the same with your fears. Write them down with brutal specificity. Not, I am afraid of failure, but I'm afraid that if I launch this business and it fails, people will think I am incompetent, and I will prove to myself that I was never capable. Now sit with that specific fear. Feel it fully. Notice that you are still breathing. Notice that the feeling, however uncomfortable, is not actually harming you. This is the beginning of fear's dissolution, not because you are brave, but because you have stopped feeding the phantom. You have looked directly at what you have been avoiding, and it has not destroyed you. The samurai trained this through regular contemplation of worst outcomes. By removing the mystery from disaster, they removed its power to move them. What you face becomes familiar. What remains hidden grows into a monster. The immovable mind faces everything and is moved by nothing. Fudoshin is not an achievement. It is a practice that never ends. The samurai understood this. They did not train until they were immovable and then retire to comfort. They trained every day until death because they knew the mind, like the body, atrophies without challenge. The question is not whether you will build this capacity. The question is whether you will build it through intentional practice or through the brutal instruction of crisis. One path is the way of the warrior. The other is the way of the victim who becomes strong only after being broken. Choose now. Begin with the morning ritual. Before you check your phone, before you speak to anyone, before you engage with the world's demands, you sit for 10 minutes in stillness. Not meditation in the transcendent sense, combat meditation. You sit in the posture of readiness, back straight, hands resting on your knees, eyes half closed. You breathe the kokyu-ho pattern. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 8 counts out. As thoughts arise, you do not fight them. You label them, planning, remembering, fearing, and return to breath. This is the foundational forge. You are teaching your mind that you control the attention, not the other way around. The samurai of the Tokugawa period, from 1603 through 1868, began every day this way. Not because it felt good, because it worked. Then you identify your daily fear exposure. This is non-negotiable. Every single day, you must do one thing that triggers the fear response you are training to master. If you fear social judgment, you speak up in the meeting. If you fear physical discomfort, you take the cold shower or add 10 minutes to your workout. If you fear rejection, you make the ask you have been avoiding. These do not need to be massive. They need to be consistent. You are not trying to become fearless. You are becoming familiar. The samurai practiced kata, the same movements repeated thousands of times, not because the movements would change, but because the practitioner would change. By the 1,000th repetition, the technique no longer required thought. It was simply what the body did. Your daily fear exposure is the same. By the 100th time you feel the discomfort and proceed anyway, proceeding becomes what you do. Keep a record, but not the way you have been taught. Do not journal about your feelings or your progress. The samurai kept simple records of their duels: date, opponent, outcome. Your record is identical. Date, fear faced, action taken. No elaboration, no analysis. This is a tactical log, not therapy. You are building evidence for yourself that you are someone who acts despite fear. In 6 months, you will have 180 entries. That is not inspiration. That is identity. You are no longer someone trying to overcome fear. You are someone who routinely walks through it. The distinction is everything. Incorporate misogi, the practice of ritual purification that samurai adopted from Shinto tradition. Once per month, engineer a significant challenge, something that genuinely frightens you, not something you have already mastered. The traditional misogi involved standing under a freezing waterfall while chanting. You do not need waterfalls, you need intensity. Sign up for the competition. Have the difficult conversation. Take the financial risk you have been calculating for months. Post the work publicly. Whatever makes your stomach drop when you think about it, that is your monthly misogi. This serves 2 purposes. First, it prevents your daily practice from becoming routine to the point of ineffectiveness. Second, it teaches you that you can handle more than you believe. The samurai knew that a warrior must regularly test himself at his edge, or he will never know where his edge actually lies. Build your council of immovability. The lone warrior is a myth. Every samurai belonged to a clan, trained with others, held himself accountable to a code shared by his brothers. You need the same structure. Find 2 or 3 men who are walking the same path. Not friends who will comfort you when you fail. Brothers who will call you forward when you hesitate. Meet weekly. Report what fear you faced, what action you took, what you learned. No excuses are permitted. No justifications. Only the facts. This is not a support group. This is a war council. You are helping each other build the capacity to stand when everything in you wants to run. The presence of witnesses changes the game. You will endure more in the presence of your brothers than you will alone. Finally, understand that Fudoshin will be tested. There will come a day when everything you have built seems to vanish. The fear will feel overwhelming. The old patterns will return. This is not failure. This is the forge reaching higher temperature. Musashi faced this before his final duel with Sasaki Kojiro in 1612 on Ganryu Island. Kojiro was a master of the longsword, undefeated, famous throughout Japan. Musashi arrived late to the duel, intentionally to disturb Kojiro's mental state. But on the boat to the island, Musashi carved a wooden sword from an oar and sat in silence. He was not eliminating his fear. He was sitting with it, acknowledging it, and choosing his action anyway. When he stepped onto that beach and faced Kojiro, the immovable mind was operational. One strike, Kojiro fell. Musashi never fought another duel. He had nothing left to prove. Not because he was unafraid, because he had become someone who could function at his absolute peak while fear roared through him. This is the destination, not the absence of the storm, the capacity to stand unmoved within it. This is Fudoshin. This is the ancient way. This is available to you starting this moment. The only question left is whether you will begin.